There is something that many people feel every day, but few know how to explain clearly. It is not a physical pain. It is not a specific worry. It is more like a constant background feeling, as if the mind were never truly silent. You can be sitting in a quiet room with no external noise, no one talking, no urgent task to do, and still feel that inside your head everything keeps moving, thoughts appearing one after another, memories returning without being called, questions about the future. Small worries that seem to grow when the mind has space. This phenomenon is what many people experience as mental noise. It is not simply about thinking a lot. Thinking is natural. The human mind is designed to analyze, remember, anticipate, and search for solutions. The problem appears when that flow of thoughts becomes constant, repetitive, and difficult to stop. In those moments, the mind stops feeling like a useful tool and begins to feel like a place full of echoes. Maybe this has happened to you at some point. You try to rest, but your mind keeps replaying conversations from the past. You remember something you said weeks ago and start wondering if it was wrong. You think about something that might happen tomorrow, and your body reacts as if that problem were already here. And without realizing it, you enter a silent cycle of thoughts. Sometimes they are not dramatic thoughts. They are not always big problems. Many times they are small ideas that appear one after another. Pending tasks, expectations, comparisons, doubts, imagined scenarios. But when they accumulate, they create something very particular: mental fatigue. The mind begins to feel saturated. Imagine for a moment a room where every day a new object is brought in. At first, nothing happens. There is enough space. But if every day more things are added and nothing is ever removed, there comes a moment when walking through that room becomes difficult. Something similar happens with thoughts. Every experience, every worry, every emotion that is not fully processed leaves a small trace, and over time, the mind begins to fill with fragments, memories, interpretations, worries, ideas that were never completely resolved. That is the invisible noise. We do not always perceive it consciously. Many people get used to living with it. They believe it is normal to constantly feel busy on the inside, that the mind should always be analyzing something, remembering something, or anticipating something. But when mental noise becomes constant, certain signs begin to appear. One of them is the difficulty of being truly present. You can be talking to someone while, at the same time, your mind is thinking about something else. You can be walking, eating, or even resting, and still feel that inside you there is an ongoing conversation. Another sign is emotional exhaustion, not because you have done too much physically, but because your mind has been working without pause. Thinking consumes energy. Every thought requires attention, interpretation, and evaluation. And when that process happens for hours, the mental system becomes fatigued. That is why many people say things like, "I'm tired, but I don't know why." "I haven't done much today, but my mind feels exhausted." "I can't stop thinking." The modern mind lives exposed to an enormous amount of stimuli. Constant information, messages, social media, responsibilities, small decisions that accumulate throughout the day. All of that feeds the noise. But there is something even deeper. Many times mental noise does not come only from what happens outside, but from what remains inside. Emotions that were never expressed, conversations that never reached closure, situations that remained open in our memory. The mind tries to resolve them by repeating them. And that is how the cycle of thought appears. The more we try to force mental silence, the more resistance we feel. It is as if the mind, noticing that we want to stop it, responds with even more activity. That is why the solution does not begin by fighting against thoughts. True transformation begins with something much simpler and much more difficult at the same time. Observing the mind, not trying to control it immediately, not trying to silence it by force, simply beginning to notice the noise. Because when you become aware of what is happening inside your mind, something changes. The noise stops being invisible. And when something stops being invisible, it becomes the first step toward clarity. When mental noise becomes constant, a feeling appears that many people know very well: the exhaustion of thinking too much. It is not the tiredness that comes after physical work. It is a different kind of fatigue, quieter and deeper. The mind seems to never stop. During the day, we analyze what happened, what could happen, and what we should do. We review conversations, imagine scenarios, and try to anticipate problems before they even exist. All of this often happens automatically, without us truly deciding to do it. And over time, that continuous flow of thoughts begins to wear down our mental energy. The problem is not thinking. Thinking is necessary to understand the world, make decisions, and learn from experiences. The problem appears when the mind enters repetitive loops, thoughts that return again and again without offering new solutions. Perhaps you remember a conversation and begin to wonder if you said the right thing. Then you imagine how you could have responded better. After that, doubt appears about what the other person really thought. And before you realize it, the mind has created a chain of thoughts that leads to no clear conclusion. This phenomenon is known as overthinking. Overthinking makes small situations feel bigger than they really are. The mind tries to resolve something that has already happened, or anticipate something that has not yet occurred. But because it cannot fully control the past or the future, it continues thinking without ever reaching an end point. This constant process generates mental tension. Many people experience this, especially at night. The body is tired, but the mind remains active. Thoughts appear one after another, as if the mind were reviewing the entire day or preparing for the next one. At that moment, the mind is no longer functioning to help you. It is functioning out of inertia. And the more you try to force rest, the more noticeable the mental activity becomes. What many people do not know is that this state of a tired mind does not mean that something is wrong with them. In reality, it is a natural response to a lifestyle full of stimuli, responsibilities, and expectations. The mind tries to process everything. But when there are no real moments of pause, that process becomes endless. That is why true mental rest does not consist only of stopping the body. It consists of allowing the mind to also reduce its activity, not by forcing it into silence, but by creating the conditions for it to gradually stop clinging to every thought that appears. And that change begins with something simple: learning not to follow every thought that crosses the mind. When the mind is full of noise and constant thoughts, many people believe the solution is to try to stop thinking. But that attempt usually creates the opposite effect. The more we try to block thoughts, the stronger they seem to become. The first step toward mental calm is not fighting the mind, but changing the way we relate to our thoughts. Imagine for a moment that each thought is like a cloud passing through the sky. Some clouds are light, others are denser, but none of them stays forever. The problem appears when we try to stop every cloud or analyze all of them. The practice of mental clearing begins with something much simpler: observing. When a thought appears, you do not need to follow it or develop it. You also do not need to judge it or try to eliminate it. Just recognize that it is there and let it pass, just like a cloud slowly crossing the sky. At first, this may seem difficult. The mind is used to reacting to every idea that appears. But over time, when you begin to observe instead of react, something changes. The flow of thoughts begins to lose intensity, and in the space between one thought and the next, something starts to appear that many people have not experienced for a long time: inner silence. When we begin to observe our thoughts without following them, something interesting happens. Little by little, the mind starts to slow down, not because we force it to stop, but because it no longer receives the energy we used to give it by reacting to every thought. Deep mental clearing does not consist of eliminating thoughts forever. That is not possible. The mind will continue producing ideas, memories, and images, but what changes is our relationship with them. Instead of getting trapped in every thought, we learn to let them pass. Imagine a river flowing. For a long time, you have been inside the current, trying to control the water. But now you decide to step back and observe the river from the shore. The water keeps flowing, but it no longer carries you away. In that space of observation, many tensions begin to dissolve. Worries lose their intensity. Memories stop repeating with the same force, and the mind begins to experience something it had forgotten: clarity. That clarity does not appear suddenly. It is a gradual process. As thoughts lose their dominance, a feeling of mental lightness and inner calm begins to emerge. It is as if the mind finally has space to breathe. When the mind begins to free itself from constant noise, something changes in a very deep way. It is not a dramatic transformation or a sudden moment of enlightenment. It is more like a gradual sensation, as if the inner space begins to expand. After allowing thoughts to calm down and learning to observe them without reacting to each one, an experience appears that many people had forgotten: mental clarity. In that state, the mind is no longer trapped in the past or constantly anticipating the future. It begins to experience the present with greater calm. Thoughts still exist, but they no longer dominate every moment. This is the essence of mental renewal. It does not mean becoming a different person. It means recovering a part of yourself that was always there, but had been covered by layers of worries, expectations, and accumulated tension. When the noise decreases, the mind becomes lighter. Decisions feel clearer. Emotions no longer feel so overwhelming. Even the problems of everyday life are perceived from a different perspective. Many times we believe that we need to change our external circumstances in order to feel inner peace. But what we discover in this process is something different. When the mind becomes calm, the way we see the world also changes. Mental clarity does not eliminate life's challenges, but it transforms the way we face them. And in that space of calm, a simple but powerful feeling appears: the possibility of starting again. Each breath becomes an opportunity to leave behind the weight of the past and open yourself to a mind that is calmer, more aware, and more free. That is the true meaning of being mentally reborn. If you enjoyed this story, if at any moment you felt it resonated with you or touched something in your heart, I would love to read your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you learned something today, or which part of this story resembles your own life. And if you would like to continue receiving these small reminders that can accompany and support you in your daily life, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for being here, for taking this moment of calm. See you in the next video.